If you're anything like me, you just finished from season 3 and you're probably sitting there mind blown, asking what in the heck just happened. But don't worry, we're about to dive deep into this insane finale. We've got births, deaths, rebirths, and that terrifying man in yellow. So yeah, you're gonna want to stick around until the end because there's a lot to unpack. And hey, if you're enjoying this roller coaster of a show, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe because I have some epic theories about season 4 that you do not want to miss. Alright, let's get into it. And a heads up, spoilers ahead. Starting off with a short recap, season 3 started with Tabitha waking up inside a hospital in Camden, Maine, which also happens to be the town where Victor used to live. She connects with Victor's father Henry, and he tells her that his wife made a replica of the bottle tree we saw previously in Fromville. While heading there, they get into an accident, and as you'd expect, their trip to the hospital is cut short when you see the infamous tree in the middle of the highway. Meanwhile, back in Fromville, Tianchen gets killed by the monsters while chasing after some cattle. This breaks Kenny's heart, who then vows to kill every last one of them. On the other hand, Fatima is struggling with her pregnancy and starts eating rotten food and drinking blood because they're apparently the only things that satiate her appetite. The ambulance, with 2 paramedics, 1 police officer, Henry and Tabitha, finally arrives in Fromville, where Tabitha tries to warn them to get inside to avoid being killed by one of the monsters, but of course they don't listen, and the 2 paramedics end up dying. But luckily, Tabitha, Henry, and the police officer are saved by Boyd and Jim. After Tabitha's miraculous return, the town people have some questions. Tabitha tries her best to explain how to get out and how she ended up back in Fromville, but that goes as well as you'd expect, and people are pissed at her for not doing more when she had the opportunity to do so. After learning about the Faraway Tree, our lovely colony house resident Dale decides to take matters into his own hands and heads inside the Faraway Tree to attempt escaping. But it doesn't go as planned, and he ends up being teleported into a wall and dies. In the meantime, Victor and Henry finally have their big reunion, and Victor later tells him that he remembers a doll named Jasper telling the town secrets to Christopher, who is an important previous resident of the town who died before the beginning of the series. They go inside the underground tunnels, where they finally end up finding Jasper and bringing him back. But he doesn't talk at all. More on this later. Now that the residents have the supplies and an ultrasound machine from the ambulance, Fatima goes to meet Christy and Marielle, who inform her that based on the ultrasound, she is not pregnant. This ends up making things even worse for her because she feels that there is something inside her that is growing, and she wonders if she is the one who's going crazy. Alice tries to console her for the time being. On the other hand, the residents find some huts out in the jungle guarded by scarecrows, where they find supply of fresh vegetables. When Tabitha learns of this, she heads over there with Jade and Ethan. Once she sees the place, she remembers seeing this exact place many times in her dreams when she was a kid. Going back to Fatima, she cannot escape what is happening to her and heads in the greenhouse to eat some more rotten vegetables when Tilly shows up right behind her, and she kills Tilly by stabbing her in the heart. When Alice and Boyd learn of this, they try to hide the fact that Fatima did this by taking her to the cabin in the woods we previously saw in season 2, and Boyd asks her to stay there for the night. Meanwhile, Julie and Randall have been growing much closer, and Randall takes her for a ride in the colony house van to teach her how to drive. Just a bit outside town, Randall starts hearing the buzzing sound because of what happened to him, Julie, and Marielle in season 2, stops the vehicle, and runs off in the woods. Julie runs after him, where she finds the place we initially saw the chained old man way back in season 1. They don't go inside for now, But Julie later returns with Ethan and goes inside, where she somehow manages to go back in time and see some of the events from season 2. Remember this, as this will be important later. Simultaneously, all this time, Elgin has been seeing a ghost wearing a kimono who has been slowly but gradually gaining his trust. He learns of Fatima's location using a magical camera that automatically clicks random pictures that point towards important clues. He takes Fatima to the cellar and traps her there, believing this was for the best because that is what the kimono lady told him. Moving on to Victor, he tries desperately to make Jasper talk, but then remembers that it wasn't Jasper who told Christopher the secrets. It was the boy in white who told Christopher about the Faraway Tree, which led to the lighthouse, which was the way to save the children of the forest. This also makes him remember that he was the one who told his mother Miranda about this, which led to her tragic death. Tabitha was with Victor at this time, and when she tries to console him, she feels something strange. More on this later as well. Victor is enraged and tries to go chop down the bottle tree when he again sees the boy in white who tells him not to do so. In the meantime, Julie tells Tabitha about the site where she felt like she experienced past events. When they notice one of the kids asking them to follow her, they oblige, and they end up at the cellar where they see Victor already inside. Tabitha again experiences a vision where she remembers Miranda leaving Victor in the cellar when he was a kid, and that is when she tried to go to the bottle tree and gets killed by the monster we have named Smiley, who was killed by Boyd back in season 2. In the meantime, Ellis figures out that there is something off with Elgin and thinks he knows where Fatima is. He goes to Boyd and Kenny to ask for help. Boyd asks Sarah to have a chat with Elgin, as she experienced something similar back in season 1 when she was hearing the voices. They all head to the colony house, where they meet up with Donna and try to talk some sense into Elgin, into telling them where Fatima is. Elgin, however, does not budge, so Boyd gets some tools to torture this information out of him. He ends up breaking his hand with a hammer when the police officer Acosta arrives and tries to stop him. While they're talking downstairs, Sarah takes this moment to take things into her own hands and tortures Elgin herself to spare Boyd of the guilt. Elgin gets tortured quite bad as Sarah takes his eye out, finally getting the information out of him that Fatima is being held at the cellar. They all rush together to the cellar, where Fatima has already given birth to something in the shape of a cocoon, which is taken by the kimono lady. The cocoon later pops into Smiley. Fatima reveals to Ellis that she now knows how the monsters came to be, that they were regular people of the town who were given the offer to sacrifice their children to obtain immortality. At least now we know where everything started. And while all of this is happening, Jim, Tabitha, and Jade are doing an investigation of their own when Jim figures out that the numbers inside the bottles taken from the bottle tree might be musical notes. Jade, of course, being who he is, knows how to play the violin based on the musical notes, which makes Tabitha remember that she and Jade were one of the first people inside the town, and that they were also married and had a daughter as well, who they were unable to save. She also mentioned that she was Miranda and Jade was Christopher, and that they have reincarnated a bunch of times because they keep on failing. And the word Ankui, what the children keep calling her, means remember. Tabitha walks away, leaving Jim alone in the woods all by himself, and boy, that was the biggest mistake ever. Shortly after, we see Julie running to Jim, but she looks somehow different and asks Jim to run away. This was her future version, which was coming back to the past to save Jim from the man we now know as the Man in Yellow. He ends up killing Jim, and this is where the season ends. The big question we've all been asking since season 1 is, what the heck is going on in this town? I'm glad season 3 finally gave us some answers. But of course, it's not as simple as you might hope. First up, have you guys heard about the cycles theory? It's pretty much the same thing Tabitha said, the cycles of death and reincarnation. Julie is a story walker, someone who revisits different chapters in this town's repeating cycle. Think about it. Julie's descent into the dungeon, her interactions with Boyd, all those crazy moments where her past versions of herself, Randall and Marielle, seem to exist in different timelines, all add to the repeating story. And if you've been paying attention, you've seen these cycles hinted at everywhere. The Civil War uniforms, the pioneer clothing, and those creepy pilgrim paintings. Now, let's talk about those numbers in the lighthouse we saw around the end of Season 2. These weren't just any random markings, guys, they were actual dates. And they're connected to that weird bottle tree. We see the numbers 1864 and 1883, but are they really dates? Or could they also represent something deeper? Maybe, just maybe, they mark the start and end points of this town's repeating cycle, and everyone is just stuck in the middle of it all. Speaking of cycles though, I know we're all wondering about reincarnation or whatever you want to call it. Are these characters coming back in different forms? Like Jade and Tabitha, for example. It's kind of crazy to think about, right? Could Jade be tied to the same couple that started this whole mess hundreds of years ago? Let me know what you think about this down in the comments. Alright, here is where it gets wild. The man in yellow. He's the new monster on the block, and he's bad news. He seems to know everything about the characters. He's even aware of Tabitha digging that hole in the basement. And remember that cryptic moment from Season 1 where Jim was talking to the voice on the radio saying, "Your wife shouldn't be digging that hole, Jim"? That was the man in yellow. I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little freaked out by this guy. Strong, ominous, and even worse, he knows the past. What if he's a past version of one of our own characters? Could the man in yellow actually be a broken version of Boyd? It would make sense considering Boyd's name in Gaelic means yellow-haired. I'm telling you, this theory could be huge. Here's the kicker. The Kimono Woman? Who is she really? Not quite a monster, not quite human. Is she working for the evil entities? Or is she something entirely different? And could there be someone or something else that manipulated Elgin to keep Fatima in that twisted state? So many questions, yet so little answers. But Season 4 might just give us the clarity we need. Okay, but let's take a quick breather here and talk about Victor and Henry. We know Victor has already found the remains of Miranda, which pretty much confirms that she's dead. But what about his sister Eloise? I have this theory that Eloise is still alive, probably stuck in another part of town, or even in a different time altogether. I mean, she's been missing for so long. What if she's just in a whole different loop? What do you think about this? And finally, this whole rainbow sky thing. What's up with the rainbow paintings that Victor's been drawing? Is it some kind of map? Is there a way out of this place, hidden in plain sight? I'm telling you, the Lake of Tears, the boats, the weird cave paintings, I think these are all clues pointing us towards the big reveal in Season 4. I don't know about you, but I think we're in for something massive. So, there you have it. Theories, clues, and even a few wild predictions for what's coming next. But I want to hear from you. What do you think is going on in this twisted town? Do you agree with my theories or think I've missed something big? Drop your thoughts down in the comments. And hey, if you enjoyed this breakdown, be sure to hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe because there's a lot more to come with Season 4, but we're just getting started. And as always, catch me in the next one.